Hi, everybody. Welcome to another webinar on creative writing. Today, we're going to be doing poetry and specifically the poetry of Shel Silverstein. We're going to see what we can learn about poetry, reading it, and writing our own poetry by studying one of the great poets of all time, in my opinion. Let's see who we have here today. So far in the attendees, we have AG, we have Anya, Addie, Akshath, I'm sorry if I don't say this right, Akshatha, okay, Alan, Alette, Amelia, Brando, Kanan, Ethan, Evelyn, Isis, Lisa, Logan, Lorna, Mackenzie, Milo, Nalia, Ronbeer, and Yona. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here today to talk about poetry. Let's see, already in our Q&A box, lots of people saying hi. Hi to everybody that has said hi in the Q&A box. As always, if you guys have any questions or you want to share an example or say something, you can use that Q&A box to do that. So hi to everybody. Welcome again. Okay, so Shel Silverstein. All right, so this is a picture of Shel Silverstein. He was born in Chicago in 1930. He did a lot of things during his life, but he's primarily known as an artist, a writer, and a musician. You've probably seen some of his books with his drawings and his writing in them before. He was a best-selling author during his lifetime. He wrote a lot of books that have, been published all over the world and sold millions of copies. You might know some of his books like The Giving Tree, Lafcadio, The Lion Who Shot Back, A Giraffe and a Half. He wrote some really fun books that were very famous. And a lot of people, they're some of their favorite books of all time. So you may have seen some of these before. But he also did a lot of other things. Shel Silverstein wrote a lot of songs that were recorded by different artists. Some of those, I think he won at least one Grammy Award for one of his songs. But he also wrote a lot of poetry, and these are some of his poetry collections that you may have seen before. Where the Sidewalk Ends, Falling Up, A Light in the Attic. These are some of his more famous poetry books. Shel Silverstein, he started out, he was a soldier during World War II, and he would do drawings that were kind of about military life. And some of those drawings were published in book form while he was in the military and again afterward. Then he wrote kind of cartoons and drawings that were mostly aimed at adults until one of his publishers said, you should try writing for children too. And it sounds like at first Shel Silverstein wasn't so sure about that, but his publisher convinced him to try it out. And he went on to write many of the most famous poetry for young people. And a lot of his poetry is so famous because it's super fun and you don't have to be young to enjoy it. I mean, adults enjoy it a lot too. A lot of adults like myself enjoy reading his poems. And it's kind of the type of poetry that can really bring like adults and young people, like parents and kids together, because it's really well written, even though it can be kind of silly and it can be a lot of fun. So today, by talking about his poetry, I think we can learn a lot about some of the basics of what makes poetry work. We're going to talk about some of the tools Shel Silverstein used to write his poems. And the first one of these that we're going to talk about is rhyming. If you know one thing about poetry, you probably know that lots of poems rhyme. Now, not all poems have to rhyme. In fact, a lot of poetry doesn't rhyme at all. A week or two ago, we did a webinar where we talked about haiku, which was a Japanese form of poetry that doesn't rhyme. I mean, if it does rhyme, it's usually unintentional. It's not the main point. There are a lot of other forms of poetry as well that trying to rhyme your words is not the most important part about it. But rhyming is when you take the end sound of a word and you try to repeat it. A very simple rhyme would be like bat, cat, at, fat, etc. Those words all have the same sound at the end of it, And it's very natural in our mind and for our ear to hear that those words sound alike. So lots of types of poetry have fun with rhyming by making the last word in a line of poetry rhyme. And it's not always the last line, last part or last word in a line either. A lot of poets will have fun with a line of poetry by making several words within the line rhyme with each other. Or they'll have every other line of a poem rhyme. There are not really any rules. It's just a tool that you can use to make your poem sound fun. So we can look at some examples of that. So here is one of Shel Silverstein's poems called Diving Board. You've been up on that diving board, making sure that it's nice and straight. You've made sure that it's not too slick. You've made sure it can stand the weight. You've made sure that the spring is tight. You've made sure that the cloth won't slip. You've made sure that it bounces right and that your toes can get a grip. And you've been up there since 5:30, doing everything but dive. So let's examine what rhymes in this poem. The first line here, you've been up on that diving board, doesn't rhyme with anything because the next line says making sure that it's nice and straight. So the end of this second line is what we're going to is what Shel Silverstein was trying to rhyme here. You've made sure that's not too slick. You've made sure it can stand the weight. So some poems you might rhyme every single line, but in this poem, straight is rhyming with weight. Then after that, you've made sure that the spring is tight, rhymes with you've made sure that it bounces right. Slip rhymes with grip. So, and then 5 here rhymes with dive. So you'll notice that board and slick don't rhyme, even though they're, the first and the third lines here. But 2 and 4 rhyme, then 5 and 7 rhyme, 6 and 8 rhyme. So after this first line, he kind of rhymed everything else. So again, there's not really a rule about how he's doing this. Sometimes the poet will just kind of, hear that, that's kind of how he likes it. He wants every other line to rhyme up until the end of the poem, where the last 2 lines both rhyme with each other. Now, there are some types of poems, if you study into this deeper, that they will have specific rhyming patterns. And it'll just be kind of agreed upon by poets that when you're doing this one type of poem, that you try to rhyme lines 1 and 3, 2 and 4, etc. There's a type of poem called a limerick, where you rhyme, it's 5 lines usually, and you rhyme 1, 2, and 5. And then 3 and 4 rhyme with each other. These are just different patterns that usually when you rhyme it in a certain way over and over again, people kind of recognize, oh, that's that type of poem. That's fun. But in Shel Silverstein's poetry, he kind of just did whatever. He would rhyme whatever lines he liked to hear them repeat. And it's kind of a bit of a more free type of poetry. As you read through his poems, you'll see that he definitely did not stick to like one type of poem or follow one set of rules. And that's something that I really like about him, is that he kind of did whatever he wanted as long as he was having fun and writing something that people would enjoy. So let's look at another poem here. Invitation. If you are a dreamer, come in. If you are a dreamer, a wisher, a liar, a hoper, a prayer, a magic bean buyer, if you're a pretender, come sit by my fire, for we have some flax golden tales to spin. Come in, come in. So I want you to look over this poem, and I want you at home to examine what about this poem is rhyming. Where is rhyme used? Try to spot some of the rhyming words. Is it just at the end of the lines, or is there any rhyming within the lines? Go ahead and put in the Q&A box when you think you've found some of the rhymes used here. Put them in that Q&A box to share with the rest of us, and I will read some of your answers. And while you do that, I'm going to jump into the Q&A box here and look through it. More people saying hi. Hi to everybody else that has said hi in here. Mackenzie says that they have some of these books at home. That's awesome. Somebody else says, I've never read any of these books. Well, Lorna, I highly recommend you when all of this staying at home stuff is over, that you go to the library and check some out or get some off of Amazon. They are awesome and they are totally worth your time. So I highly recommend them. Madeline says, I have all of those. Yeah, they're awesome. I'm not surprised if a lot of you have these at home because they're really good. Let's see. Amelia asks, does a poem have to be short? That's a great question. A lot of poems are short, but some poems can take pages. And there are even some forms of poetry that take up an entire book. If you've ever heard of the Odyssey or the Iliad, they are two ancient poems written by a poet named Homer, not the character from The Simpsons, but he was an ancient Greek guy. And he wrote some poems that take up whole books because they're so long, but they are still considered poetry. So no, a poem doesn't have to be short. It can be really any length you want. Yeah, and then a further question here. Does a poem have to have a certain number of lines? No, because some poems are really short. We talked about haiku a week or two ago. Haiku usually only have a few lines. They only have 3 lines, but epic poems like the Odyssey have, I don't know, thousands of lines or tens of thousands of lines. All right, here we go. Here's some answers. Kanan says, liar, buyer, and fire rhyme. That is correct. Several other people, AG, Nalia, Amelia, all spot liar, buyer, and fire. Good job. Alette sees that in and spin rhyme. That's correct. Yeah, you'll notice that in the first line, it says, if you are a dreamer, come in. And then at the end, in the 5th line, it says, for we have some flax golden tales to spin. By the way, flax is a type of plant that you can grow, and you could spin it into a type. It's like a type of fiber that they could spin and make flax into kind of like thread, or they could make types of clothing or cloth out of it. You could go to Google Images and look up flax, and you'll see that it's usually like a yellow or golden color. But he's just saying flax golden here to say that something that is as golden or that gold color as flax, the plant. All right. Let's see. Yeah, so yeah, more people pointing out the sounds, liar, buyer, fire. That's right. You'll notice that liar, buyer, and fire are all spelled differently, yet they all rhyme. That's something really important to spot about rhyming, is they don't have to be spelled the same way. Rhyming is all about how the words sound. And that's something that poets can have a lot of fun with when they write poetry, is that it doesn't really matter how the word is written as long as the sound is the same. All right, does anybody see any rhyming inside of the lines? Amelia says, how do you spell those long those book-long poems? The Iliad, I'll stop the screen share for just a second. The Iliad is I-L-I-A-D, and the Odyssey is O-D-Y-S-S-E-Y, I think, off the top of my head. Yeah, but if you ask a parent or somebody to help you look for the Odyssey or the Iliad, the reading level of those poems is pretty high, but they are very famous, and there's a lot of movies, a lot of books, a lot of stories have been based off of those ancient poems. So yeah, they're worth a look. All right. Okay, so let's see what else we found in this poem. Yeah, so the sounds, the in sound. Yeah, Nalia points out hoper and prayer both have an sound at the end. That's right. Dreamer, hoper, prayer, pretender, those words all end with an sound as well. So they, you know, they can sound a little bit more awkward in a way because hoper and prayer don't sound super similar, but the last sound is the same there. Yeah, and also, let's see, who was that pointed that out? Evelyn points out that come, sit by the fire, some, flax, golden tails, come, and some both rhyme as well. So that's a good point. So as we can see here, you can rhyme at the end of a line, you can rhyme inside of a line, and it's kind of just the rhyming is just pleasant for the person listening or reading. I don't know, there's something in us as humans that we really like hearing those repeated sounds. So whenever you rhyme over and over again, it kind of just creates like a pleasant rhythm to what you're writing. Rhythm, you know, in music, when you kind of feel like the beat of something, that there's kind of like a, you know, a steady beat. Rhyming can kind of do that for something that's written. So yeah, that's something you can look for in poems. And that's something that in your own poetry, when you can put rhymes in, you can have a really fun sound to it. All right, we're going to go on to the next part here. This next one is a big word. You may not have heard this word before, but it's alliteration. I'm not sure how many of you have heard that word before, but it's very important to poetry. Alliteration. And what that word means is alliteration is when a writer repeats the consonant sound at the beginning of words. So that's the other thing we need to know is, what is a consonant? You may remember this from spelling or from, you know, your English classes, but consonants are the letters that your mouth closes to make the sound. B, K, D, F, G, M. All the letters, most of the letters in the alphabet are consonants. The letters that are not consonants are the vowels, A, E, I, O, and U. You'll know the vowels because you open your mouth to say them. A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y. But those vowels are the open sounds. We're putting those aside for a second. If there's 26 letters in the alphabet and 5 of them are vowels, that means the other 21 are the consonants. All the W, D, Z. You'll notice that all the consonants, you close your mouth for it. Usually there are more consonants in a word than there are vowels. In my name, Corey, it begins with a C. And the word book, it begins with a B. These are consonants. So alliteration is when the writer repeats the consonant sound at the beginning of words. There's a famous tongue twister when it says, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. That's alliteration. We're repeating that P sound at the beginning of all of those words, or most of those words. In another tongue twister, she sells seashells down by the seashore. That's alliteration again. We're repeating that S sound at the beginning of a lot of those words. So it's not just in tongue twisters that we use alliteration. Shel Silverstein and a lot of other poets use alliteration as well. So let's look at some examples of that. This is a poem about a bear in a fridge. Just to make sure you know what some of these words here mean. Frigidaire is just a brand of refrigerator. Frigidaire, I think, used to be one of the most, it might still be one of the most famous brands of fridge. But how many of you have actually gone and looked at what brand your refrigerator is? I'm guessing not many, but many of them are Frigidaires. So if you, I think back in the day, most people might have known what brand their fridge was. So you could use the word Frigidaire and people would know that you were talking about a refrigerator. Anyway, all right, let's read this poem. There's a polar bear in our Frigidaire. He likes it 'cause it's cold in there. With his seat in the meat and his face in the fish and his big hairy paws in the buttery dish. He's nibbling the noodles. He's munching the rice. He's slurping the soda. He's licking the ice. And he lets out a roar if you open the door. And it gives me a scare to know he's in there, that polary bear in our Frigidaire. So right off the bat, you'll notice there's a lot of rhyming in this poem. And go ahead if you want to for fun. Go ahead and call out some of those rhymes. You can type those in the Q&A box. But in addition to rhyming, Shel Silverstein uses a lot of alliteration in this poem. And his face in the fish. He's nibbling the noodles. He's slurping the soda. It's kind of fun to repeat those vowel sounds at the beginning of words. There's something pleasant about hearing the same sound repeated over and over again. I don't know, maybe scientists have studied this. I don't know if they have or not, but artists have discovered that this is something that's fun for readers and it's fun to write too. So you'll just notice that there will be a lot of repeating of those sounds. I'm checking the Q&A box to see if any of you guys have noticed any of these here, if you want to tell me about them. Kanan wrote down a whole bunch of consonants. Good job. Let's see. Nalia points out that Frigidaire is spelled differently at the end. Yeah, he's just having fun with that. He says that polary bear in our Frigidaire. Yeah, it just sounds fun. He's just doing that for fun. He's kind of making it sound like a describing word. That polary bear in our Frigidaire. He's rhyming bear and dare, and he's making polary and frigidi sound like describing words. So he's just having a little bit of fun with that. It looks like a number of viewers here ran to their kitchens and they're letting us know what brand of fridge they have. Andrew says Whirlpool. Lisa says KitchenAid. Yeah, so I don't know how many Frigidaires there still are. I don't know if that brand is still in business or not. Okay, so Lorna points out that polar bear and Frigidaire rhyme. That's a good point. AG says Frigidaire, bear, and there. Yeah, the first three lines, there's a polar bear in our Frigidaire. He likes it because it's cold in there. Yeah, those three lines all rhyme. Lorna points out that seat in the meat rhymes. Good point. He's licking the ice. Rhymes with earlier, he's munching the rice. So lots of rhyming in here. Very fun. And his face in the fish rhymes with in the buttery dish. So very good job. Now, what are some of the, can you guys spot some of the alliteration in here? I think I called out several of them. Can you find any more alliteration? Amelia has a question here. Can you say the author of those long books? Homer, H-O-M-E-R. Homer was a Greek poet who wrote those really long epic poems. Yeah, if you Google Homer and then Iliad or Homer and Odyssey, there's lots you can read about them. All right. Did we find any more alliteration here? Roar and door, that's correct. Well, that's rhyming. But yeah, Alette points out, yes, nibbling the noodles is alliteration. Very good. Slurping the soda, Shanna says, very good job. Let's move to another poem here. I'm not going to call these ones out. I want you guys to see what alliteration you can find. This is The Edge of the World. Columbus said the world is round. Don't you believe a word of that? For I've been down to the edge of the world, sat on the edge where the wild wind whirled, peeked over the ledge where the blue smoke curls, and I can tell you, boys and girls, the world is flat. So that's a fun poem. Not true, by the way. The world is not flat. Some people have been saying that in the past couple of years, but it is definitely round. But in this poem, the world is flat. So Let's see if we can find some alliteration in this poem. You'll notice there is rhyming, and you can call that out too if you want to. But the main thing we're looking for here is alliteration. We're looking for those consonant sounds at the beginning of words. Where are some of words where the consonant sound is repeated over and over again? Can any of you spot the alliteration? All right, you guys spotted this right away. You guys are too good. Let's see, Isis, AG, Fallon, Brando, Madeline, Evelyn, Anya, everyone. You guys did great. Everyone's spotting it. Yes, wild wind world. That W repeated 3 times in a row. Sat on the edge where the wild wind whirled. It's really fun to repeat that W sound. Yeah. Did you guys notice how many other times W sounds are used in this poem? See if you can find where else W's are used besides those 3. Yeah. Oh, I think AG found him. AG says, Columbus said the world is round. Don't you believe a word of that? Then he says world again here. And then he says, sat on the edge where the wild wind whirled. Yeah, so there are 5 W words used in the first 4 lines. And it's a lot of fun to say those W's over and over again. Yeah, let's see. Anya spotted that. Evelyn spotted that. Milo, Shanna, Alette, Lorna, Kanan. Yeah, if I didn't call your name out, you guys are doing a great job. Brando sees that. Brando also points out that world in the 3rd line and world at the end of the 4th line, they sound the same. They're 2 different words. World and at the end of the 3rd line, of course, means the planet, the whole planet that we're on. But world at the end of the 4th line means for something to kind of spin around quickly. The wind whirled around. So do you guys know the word for that? When 2 words sound the same, but they're not the same word? You can get an extra, learn an extra thing here. Let's see if anybody knows that. Yes, AG jumped in the Q&A box and says, that is a homonym. You are correct. A homonym is when 2 words sound the same, but they are not. World and world are homonyms. They mean 2 completely different things, but they sound the same. And because they sound the same, Shel Silverstein used them here to create a rhyme. World and world. So yeah. Oh, I just noticed another one. Where the wild wind whirled. I didn't even see that one at first, but yeah, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He uses 7 W words in the first 4 lines. So very good job. Amelia asks, do we need to have a book for this class? No, you don't need a book for this class. We're just going to show all the poems right up here on the screen. If you want to get a Shel Silverstein book once you're done with the seminar today, more power to you. I highly recommend it. They are worth your time to read and enjoy. So yeah, that was alliteration. The next time you're reading a poem, you can look for alliteration in it. Okay, the next thing that we're going to look at is called assonance. This is another word. I would be surprised if you've heard this word before because it is kind of a specialized writing and poetry word, assonance. Assonance is when a writer repeats the vowel sounds in the middle of words. So alliteration was the consonant sound at the beginning of words, and assonance is the vowel sound inside of words. So again, vowels are those A, E, I, O, U type sounds in the middle of words. We have the short A sound, A, and the long A sound, A. E, you have and E. O, you have like ah and O. There's, different vowel sounds. But those vowel sounds sometimes are at the beginning of words, but very often they're also in the middle of words. And you'll notice if you start looking for this in poetry and in writing, that poets will often try to repeat those vowel sounds inside of words over and over again as well. So let's look at some possible examples of that. All right, so this is another famous Shel Silverstein poem. There is a place where the sidewalk ends, and before the street begins. And there the grass grows soft and white, and there the sun burns crimson bright. And there the moonbird rests from his flight to cool in the peppermint wind. Let us leave this place where the smoke blows black, and the dark street winds and bends. Past the pits where the asphalt flowers grow, we shall walk with a walk that is measured and slow, and watch where the chalk white arrows go to the place where the sidewalk ends. Yes, we'll walk with a walk that is measured and slow, and we'll go where the chalk white arrows go. For the children, they mark, and the children, they know the place where the sidewalk ends. All right, so we're doing this one third because this one can be a little bit trickier. Rhyming, by the way, you'll notice in this poem, the first two things that we already talked about. This poem uses a lot of rhyming, and it also uses a lot of alliteration. And let's just take a moment and point those out. Can you guys, before we move on to really trying to spot the assonance here, can you spot the rhyming and can you spot the alliteration? I'm not going to call any out because I'm going to give that to you guys. In the Q&A box, see if you can find examples of rhyming and see if you can find examples of alliteration. There are plenty of both, so I think you guys could have some fun spotting those. There should be enough for everybody, so I'm going to call some out if you find them. Let's see. Good. Evelyn sees that bright and flight rhyme. Very good job. The end of the fourth line and the end of the fifth, bright and flight, is rhyming. Very good. Also, that walk and chalk rhyme. Very good job. Yeah, like over down here. And watch where the chalk white arrows go to the place where the sidewalk ends. Yeah, we have rhyming in the middle of words there. Yeah. Let's see. Nalia points out the grass grows soft and white, sun burns crimson bright, moonbird rests from his flight. So white, bright, and flight is all rhyming. Very good job. Yeah. AG points out that grow and slow rhyme. Very good job. Yeah. Also slow, go, and no all rhyme. Very good job. So you guys are doing a great job on the rhyming. What about alliteration? Let's see what we can find for alliteration. Nalia sees that where it says the smoke blows black. Yeah, blows black is alliteration. Very good job. What other alliteration can we find? Brando says grass grows. Yeah, good job. Yeah, right here in the third line. When it says the grass grows, it's using alliteration. What other alliteration? Do we have any more? Can anybody see any? Good. Kanan also spotted blows black. Good job. Lots of you are spotting rhyming. Very good job. Yep. Yep. Lorna points out that watch where is alliteration. Very good job. Wheel walk is alliteration. Good. Past the pits, AG says. Very good job. Yeah. All right, good. So you guys did a great job spotting rhyming and alliteration. So let's see if we can also find some assonance here. So rhyming is when the end of the word, has the same sound. But there are situations where the end of the word is not the same, but the vowel sound in the middle of the word is still the same sound repeated. So for example, Lorna spotted right here at the beginning of the second part where it says, let us leave this place where the smoke blows black. So smoke and blows don't rhyme, but they both have an O sound in the middle. So poets can try to, repeat those vowel sounds. I think another one here, look at the end of the second part. and watch where the chalk white arrows go to the place where the sidewalk ends. So they have chalk and walk, which actually rhyme, but the second part of both those words, white and side don't rhyme, but they both have an I sound in the middle. So chalk white and sidewalk, there's kind of some repeated vowels there. The fact that, that could just be a coincidence, but the fact that they're both in the same spot at the end of those two lines leads me to believe Shel Silverstein might have chosen those words specifically because he was trying to repeat some of those sounds. Can you guys spot any other assonance in this poem? Can you spot anywhere else where the vowel sounds in the middle of the words might have been chosen to make a repeating vowel sound? That's your challenge here. This is the toughest of the three that we're going to talk about today. Rhyming can be a little bit easier. Alliteration can be a little bit easier to spot. Assonance can be a bit tougher. It's because you're looking for a sound in the middle of a word. But I'm going to see if you guys can spot any more of them. Evelyn says, peppermint wind. Yeah, I think you're right. When it says peppermint wind, he ends the line with two short I sounds, mint, wind. Those two words don't rhyme, but they do sound a little bit similar in the middle because they both have that short I sound, mint, wind. It gives you a bit of repeating, a bit of rhythm in a different way. It's kind of fun because it's not your normal type of rhyme. It's repeating something, but in the middle. It's a bit trickier. Let's see. AG says past and asphalt. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, those both have a short A sound in the middle. Well done. Let's see. Brando points out the moonbird rests from his flight to cool in the peppermint wind. Yeah, moon and cool both have an ooh sound in the middle. Very good job. Yeah, so you could even maybe argue that shall, walk, those don't sound quite as much the same, but they both have an A sound in the middle. Yeah. Oops, sorry, started to move forward there for a little bit. Okay, good. So, yeah, some more people are pointing out some more rhyming there and where. But yeah, so I think you guys did a good job spotting all those. You'll notice that this is one of those poems where, he's using all three. But if we go back, I want to go back to some of the earlier poems for a minute. You'll notice he's kind of been doing this all along. Let's go back and look at some of the earlier ones. Diving board, where we were just looking at the rhyming. Let's see if you guys can spot any alliteration or assonance in this one. You've been up on that diving board, making sure that it's nice and straight. You've made sure that it's not too slick. You've made sure it can stand the weight. You've made sure that the spring is tight. You've made sure that the cloth won't slip. You've made sure that it bounces right and that your toes can get a grip. And you've been up there since 5:30, doing everything but dive. We talked about rhyming, but do we see any alliteration or assonance in this one? See if you guys can find any. Yeah, Evelyn says dive and 5. Yeah, those, you could argue that those do have assonance because the I sound is the same in the middle of both of them, but they do go further to actually rhyming because the end of the word is the same too. So yes, they definitely rhyme. Usually though, when they're talking about assonance, the words don't always rhyme, but the middle of the words kind of sound the same because they have that repeating vowel sound. Good job. Isis, she points out, it's not too slick. they both have a short I sound. Shanna asks a great question. Do all the sures count? Well, there, you know, you've made sure, he repeats over and again. Those are like literal repetition of the same, you know, words. So, I mean, kind of, but that's not really what we're looking for at the same time, because we're looking for different words that do repeat the same vowel sound in the middle. But great question. All right, good. Yeah, Fallon points out can and stand. Yeah, right there in the fourth line, you've made sure it can stand the weight. Yeah, that's assonance because they don't exactly rhyme, but the ah sound in the middle is the same. Very good job. Good. Yeah, somebody else said won't and toes. Yeah, where were the toes? Yeah, right here. Toes in one of the almost the last lines. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that could run. That could have assonance with won't. Yeah, good job. All right, good. So for our last one, because we only have a few minutes left. Oh yeah, and Alette says half past. Yeah, that's another great example. Half past both have that short A sound in them. All right, so one last one to look at here. Let's look at, I want to look at that bear poem again because I really like it. Can you guys spot any, we've talked about rhyming in this one, we talked about alliteration, but see if you can find any assonance in the polar bear poem. And yeah, we'll end off with that one. If you guys can find some assonance in this one, you guys are doing a great job. So where are the repeated vowel sounds here? I love the drawings too, by the way. When we talked about that Shel Silverstein was a writer and an artist, he drew all the pictures for his poems too. I hope you guys noticed that. All right. Yeah, so Kanan points out dish and nibbling. Yeah, dish and nibbling both have the same vowel sound in them. Really good job. Oh, on that last one, Alan points out that nice and tight both have an I sound in them. Very good job. All right, let's see. Isis also sees that polar and cold have that repeated O sound. That's a good point. Well done. In and fish. Yep. Good job, Alette. That is assonance. Well done. Yeah, even his, in, and fish all have a short I sound in them. So well done. Yeah, that was Isis also. Alette and Isis both pointed out that that line had, and Lorna pointed out that dish, fish, in, those all have I sounds in them. Keenan points out that buttery and munching both have a U sound in them. Yeah. So well done. Mackenzie asks, can we see the picture of Shel again? Sure. Yeah, we're almost done here. So as we end off, yep, this guy here, that was Shel Silverstein. A very interesting looking guy in addition to everything else. The last thing I just wanted to point out, this is not really one of the three rules so much as I think some good advice that really made Shel Silverstein's poem stand out was, above all, have fun. Poetry should not be painful. It should not be too much hard work. I think what really, Shel Silverstein used a lot of different tools to make his poems, but he was having a lot of fun above all. All of his poems are full of they're very funny. They're full of life. They're full of everyday situations made kind of ridiculous at a lot of places. So as you write your own poems, try to have fun with it, and then you'll get some great work. So thank you guys for looking at Shel Silverstein's poems with me today. I hope those different things that we looked at help you read poems and hopefully write some of your own poetry in the future. Because remember, keep on writing. That's the best way to improve all of your skills. I'll see you guys tomorrow. We're going to be doing creative writing again. We're going to be talking about world building, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun with that. So that'll be tomorrow at 2:30. I hope to see you then.